We want to welcome all those who are joining us across the nation and around the world this morning, especially our men and women in uniform. Thank you for participating in Columbine United Church. We are grateful for your ears, for your eyes all around the world this morning, and you are in our thoughts and prayers. Let's give them a big round of applause this morning. Our scripture text is one verse this morning, Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 2. It's one of the best texts in scriptures right here. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. Let that sink in. I'm going to read it again. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. And let God speak through that scripture text to you this morning. I have the privilege of introducing you today to our guest preacher, Mattson. Matt and his family, his lovely family is right up here, came to our church just a few years ago. And I've gotten the privilege of getting to know Matt, and Matt and I becoming good friends. Matt, thanks, Mitch. I missed this the first service, so he just threw this in, so I made sure I didn't miss it. I struggle try to be professional. I try. Matt is the author of We Dare You, which is a whole book about social excellence. And there's Matt's family right there on screen. That's his lovely wife with her mouth dropped all the way open as they're falling down through the sky, okay? Let me tell you a little bit about Matt and what he does. So a few months ago, Steve, Jane, and I were planning our sermon series for this time of the year. And we knew that we wanted to preach about inspiration and the various different places in life where we receive inspiration and the different places in life that we know inspiration needs to happen in. And we said, we need to have a sermon on inspired to change the world. And we want someone who is actually changing the world to come in and preach. And we thought of Matt, because Matt is changing the world, and he's doing it one handshake at a time. Matt is a national speaker. He goes to mostly college campuses all across the United States, and he speaks to college students about being socially excellent and what it means to be able to walk up to someone and be able, and I'm going to use you again, and to be hi, and give handshakes and to have smiles and to have eye contact, and that every time we do that, we are changing our lives and we're changing someone else's life. And so, without further ado, I invite Matt Mattson to come up here and speak this morning.
Thank you. I want to talk about human connection. Do me a favor, I want you to take a moment to reflect and remember. I want you to think about some of your most recent moments of human connection. Feel free to close your eyes if you want to. I want you to think back. Think back to moments of human connection you've had, little moments of conversation that mattered, little smiles you've exchanged, glances you've shared, handshakes with somebody special, a moment where you felt heard, a moment where you felt listened to. It might have been just a fleeting little small moment. Maybe just a warm smile from someone just when you needed it, or a knowing touch, or a hug from a child. It might have been a bigger moment. It might have been one of those conversations where before the conversation you were strangers and afterwards you felt like soulmates. One of those conversations where during the conversation it felt like time stood still. I want you to think of those moments with gratitude and understand the importance of those moments. You can open your eyes if you were reflecting. See, we as humans, we're social animals. We're driven by this evolutionary destiny to connect. Most of our life, we're constantly seeking connection. From the moment we're born, all throughout our life, we're looking for people who will love us and who we can love, who will trust us and who we can trust. Even into our old age, we're constantly seeking deep human connection. Those are my grandparents, by the way. Aren't they awesome? Like, that's who they really are, by the way. This is how their life is. I think there's a reason that those little moments of connection are so important to us. I think in that space between, in that space, in those moments where you're connecting with somebody, and that right here in this space, I think that's where God lives. I think each of us are filled, I think every person we encounter is filled with this divine potential. And we get to make a choice about whether or not we tap into that divine potential in others or not. We get to make that choice. By the way, I think that's what church is about, isn't it? Connection, right? I don't mean we just come here to make friends. I mean that maybe the only place church exists, this is Mattson's opinion, by the way. There are biblical scholars in the room who know much more about this stuff than I do, but here's what I think. Maybe church, the idea of church and faith is just this imaginary social construct. Church doesn't even exist except in the space between us, the congregants, the members of a church, the people who believe this stuff, and other human beings. It's how we fill this space that our divine potential is realized or not. Those little moments of conversation, those little moments of connection, those little moments, maybe that's everything. But this is how we spend most of our life, isn't it? Or too much of it anyway. Something like this. This gives me a chance to check my notes, by the way. Right on track. Things are going great. Think about your last week. Think about this week. Think about today even. How many people did you not interact with? How many moments of divine connection did you just leave laying on the table? How many hands did you not shake? How many people did you pass by and just barely even notice? How many family members did you not quite give the level of attention to that they deserve? So much of our life we miss. I mean, as humans, all we want is to be connected, right? All we deeply want is to be connected. And we spend so much of it missing that connection. I think we get to choose. These moments of divine connection, I think, are our choice. Can I share with you, would you all be all right? By the way, this is a big deal for me. I don't know, I've probably told 4 people in my life that someday I hope I could be a preacher. Like I just really dreamed of that someday. And when Justin asked me on behalf of, I started crying right there. We were in the airport. Justin and I were in the airport together, and I said, like, me? You mean it? Like, you want me to? This is a big deal to me, so thank you. Thank you for honoring me with this moment. Thank you for letting me, thanks. Anyway, can I share with you a few of my own moments of divine connection, maybe just to make this real for a second? Let me share with you a simple one, right? Some of these moments are simple and fleeting. I'll share one that stars Pastor Justin. He was right. I'm deeply grateful that I feel like I've become Justin's friend. We get to spend some time together, mostly at Starbucks. We share a cup of coffee together. I'm guessing I'm not the only person who gets to connect with our pastors that way, in just this real way, right? I mean, I've spent so much time with Justin at this point that I'm not even sure he's that important anymore. I used to think he was seems kind of regular. Don't worry, Steve. You're still up there, bro. I mean, just like, wow. Anyway, a moment of a little connection. This week, Justin and I were at Starbucks. We were just at the Starbucks down the road, and we were having a conversation, mostly in preparation for the sermon today. And we had like an hour-long conversation, as we often do, and then we were about ready to get on with our lives, right? I got work to do, he has work to do. So we started to say goodbye, and we stood up next to our table, and then some other little conversation started between us, and we just kept talking. And at this point, we're sitting, like the table was really close to the door, so at this point, we're both standing next to the table, really awkwardly, like in everybody's way, still having like this great conversation. And at some point, Justin, I think, was graceful enough to say, "Hey, Matt, maybe we shouldn't have stood up. Do you want to sit back down?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think so." And anyway, I don't even remember what we were talking about, but for me, these little moments of divine connection, they can be that simple, that that fleeting, that almost silly, right? But this is what life is made of, I think. Let me share with you another one of my own moments of divine connection. That's my little sister in the middle. She's in the room. I don't know why I'm all emotional. I love you. Anyway, I wasn't the best big brother growing up. Anybody else an older sibling? Is there anybody else in here who's an older sibling? If you're an older sibling, I was 4 years older than my sister, which means I was just mean to her all the time. Like, I was just mean. I just beat her up and call her names and push her around. I was just not the nicest person in the world. She was such a sweet, little sister, because little sisters have to be, right? Like, they get dragged to everything. But I was an older brother. I was, whatever, right? And I feel like that was our relationship for a long time, as older brother, little sister, right? And then, a few years ago now, she got engaged, and she was, it was a few months before this day happened, the day that she got married. And she and her fiance, now her husband, asked me to officiate her wedding. And now, I've had as a speaker, like, I get to speak in some really cool opportunities sometimes. And this moment right here, as I just shared with you, is one of the more important speeches I feel like I've ever given. I gave a TED Talk not too long ago. You can find it on the internet. But that was a big moment for me, a great big moment for me. Maybe the most important time I ever got asked to speak and hold a microphone was when my grandmother asked me, when I was 23 years old, I think, my grandma asked me to give the eulogy at my grandfather's funeral. My grandfather was my idol. He was the person that I always wanted to be. And so that was maybe the most important microphone I ever held. But certainly in the top three was the day that my little sister asked me to officiate her wedding. And some of you were probably questioning when you heard you had a guest speaker this morning, is this guy qualified to stand in the church? And I just want to assure you all that I did in fact go on the internet and get ordained. So it's fine. It's fine. It cost $12.95, took me 60 seconds or so, but I'm fully qualified to be here right now. I know what I'm doing. Anyway, I did that for their wedding, and I share this with you because the moment of connection happened when, the summer leading up to the wedding, or the months leading up to the wedding, I got to have these real conversations with Melissa and Justin about the real stuff of life. And as a big brother who's always just sort of picked on his little sister and always been big brother, little, that relationship, I felt like we hadn't often connected in that real way. And those moments of talking about what does marriage mean to you, what does love mean to you, what do you want your life to be like for a brother to get to have those conversations in a real way with his little sister, you have no idea what that meant to me. These little moments of human connection. I'll share with you one other little moment of divine connection for me. Happened here. Happened just this fall. I don't remember the details exactly. I know there was a sermon that Steve was giving on one of our mission agencies, and the topic somewhere in there was about suicide and mental illness. And I can't even put together the details of exactly how it all happened. I just remember I was sitting near the back of the church, which we don't normally do. We're normally good congregants. We sit up front, not like you people in the back. Anyway, we were back there. We were back amongst the peanut gallery, I think. And there was this moment where the sermon, was about suicide, about a very real thing, and there was a woman sitting next to me, and we just sort of exchanged eye contact, and I could tell that she was struggling with this topic in a real way that was personal to her. And there was, at some point during the sermon, we could whisper to each other, right? And I shared with her a little bit that I had just some personal experience with the topic, and I'd been down a dark road like that before, and that I knew that things got better, and it was just a little moment, right? Just a little whisper comment in church, right? The thing that I'm sure all of you do all the time for the people sitting around you. And at the end of that sermon, just as people are about to get up, right? And we're about to do the thing where we all hold hands across the aisle. Not my favorite thing, by the way. But anyway, we do that thing, right? Now, you know what is my favorite thing about that holding hands part? That little squeeze you get at the end. Did you get that squeeze from your neighbor? God, it's beautiful, isn't it? Anyway, right at the end of that sermon, she sort of turns to me and just taps me on the hand just lightly and just said, I think God sat you next to me this morning. And is there any greater thing that someone could say to you? Anyway, these little moments of human connection, these little moments of divine connection, I think that's where God lives. I'm no religious scholar, but that's where I feel it. And I'm guessing I'm not alone in that. So let's mingle. Let's share some of these moments. Here's what I want you to do. Follow my instructions very closely. We're going to make a mess. When I say go, and not until then, if you're willing and able, I want you to stand up. I want you to go find a stranger in the room. I want you to shake their hand, have a conversation with them, sit down, and get to know them. Everybody understand? Listen to my instructions. Don't do anything until I say go. When you stand up, I want you to shake somebody's hand, meet a stranger, and make a new friend. Everybody understand? On your marks, get set, stop. It's okay, everybody. Take it easy. It's okay. It's okay. People are freaking out, man. That was awesome. Now I do this with a lot of audiences, that fun little gag, and there's always like a physical response to that impending challenge, right? I say, I want you to stand up and go meet a stranger. And at one end of the spectrum, there's some people who are like, yay, and you're jumping out of your seat, collecting your stuff. Hooray! Friends are fun, right? A little further down the spectrum, I say, I want you to stand up and go meet a stranger, and I see many of you respond like this. Then at the other end of the spectrum, I say, I want you to stand up and go meet a stranger, and a handful of you are just like, oh, jeez. Anyway, wherever you are on the spectrum between social excellence and social awkwardness, I need you to know it's okay. Just so everybody knows it's okay wherever you are. In fact, your initial emotional reaction to that impending challenge of meeting a stranger, I need you to know that's an excellent indicator of your current level of social aptitude. And whatever it is fine. Wherever you find yourself on that continuum is absolutely okay. I need you to know right now that I'm not socially excellent naturally. I'm an introvert. And many people are like, you can't be an introvert, you're a professional speaker. Oh yeah? Who do you think I get to listen to the whole time? Myself. And I'm amplified. It's fantastic. It's like I live in a closet. You all don't matter in my life. I just want you to know wherever you are is absolutely okay, because this is about choice. This isn't about a born set of, skills that you have or talents that you have. This is about choice. See, I'm not an introvert, so it's not natural for me to want to just hang out and breakfast in Beale Hall over here in the morning, right? And make friends with everybody. I feel exhausted after that, if I'm being honest with you. But the truth is, I know in my head that if I make the choice to do that, I'll have the church experience that I want. And I get to make that choice, right? I can't not talk to you and not be friends with you all and then leave and complain, there's Columbine United Church, they're not friendly. No, I get to make the choice, right? We all get to make that choice. And it's in that choice that we live out our divine potential, I think. So social excellence is what I teach. Justin showed you this slide earlier. I'm going to just read you the definition just so you to sort of know where I come from, what I'm talking about. I'd be curious if I get to talk to any of you afterwards. I'd be curious, what's your favorite word? Just your favorite word in this slide. This is how we define social excellence: a state of perpetual generosity, curiosity, positivity, and openness to limitless possibility. A desire to intentionally connect with others, the ability to engage in deep, meaningful conversation, not the surface level nonsense that most of us spend too much of our life in. Acting in a responsible and respectable manner with high expectations of others, being authentic, and living every day with integrity is the best version of you. Being confident and vulnerable, being fun and compassionate, being open, kind, and bold, the deepest level of societal participation and contribution. So one day I gave this talk. I gave a talk about social excellence. I was at University of Nebraska Kearney is where I was. And after the program, people line up to get my autograph. That's not true, by the way. But anyway, people came up to thank me. A handful of people came up to thank me. And one young lady came up to me, and she just looked at me and she said, good job. I really liked the talk. And I said, thanks. And she said, are you a believer? And I was like, what? She said, are you a believer? I said, well, why do you ask? Help me understand why you're asking. She said, because I feel like everything you were teaching me, talking about social excellence, is just, I feel like that's what I've been taught as a Christian about how to live my life. Well, what an incredible compliment to get. I honor the level of compliment that she gave me in that moment. And it also made me curious. Is social excellence biblical? Is social excellence taught in the Bible? I think so, by the way. I think so. I've been digging around to try and figure it out. Turns out, if you open up that Bible, the dust comes off. I didn't know this until I opened it up. Turns out I looked inside, there's all these cool words, and they teach you cool stuff. And my first thought is the stories throughout the Gospels of Jesus' journeys, right? And I think about all the strangers he must have encountered. I mean, how many people that he didn't know must he have talked to in order for us to be where we are today? Everybody think about that for a moment. Not just his 12 buddies, right? I'm talking about all the strangers that he must have encountered and shook hands with. I don't know if they actually shook hands back then. A lot of nasty diseases back then. Anyway, I don't know. I think about all those connections that he must have shared. And remember, he talked to lepers and prostitutes, and he talked to poor people, and he talked to people that he never should have talked to based on that society's times. But because he did, we're together today. Then there's a couple passages. There's a bunch of passages that I could go into. I wrote a blog. You're welcome to read that blog. I'll share it with you some other time if you want, but about where social excellence is in the Bible. But there's a couple that really struck me. The first one was the reading today. "Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares." In other words, be nice to people, because they might be a messenger from God. What a thought. What a thought that everyone we encounter has within them this divine potential. One other passage that I just love, it's so simple. I'm a sucker for short biblical quotes, I guess, but this one really struck me. Just so simple. Let this sink in. "Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep." You know, I feel like this passage from Romans is reminding us that emotion, our human emotion, is the conduit that we have to connect with one another and thereby connect with angels unawares sometimes. I mean, we can choose to live in the middle, right? We can choose to talk about benign things. We can talk about The Bachelorette, right? What's going on with The Bachelorette. There's nothing wrong with that. You can talk about that cool TV show. That's fine. But are you connecting, or are you just doing things that pass the time? We can fake our way through a conversation with sarcasm and little things that make us comfortable just so we can get past the conversation, or we can dive deeper. We can rejoice with those who rejoice, or we can weep with those who weep. And it's when we make that choice to live in one of those two zones, the rejoice zone or the weep zone, when we're able to get into the real stuff with real people, that I think we feel rewarded, and we feel uplifted, and we feel valued, and we feel needed and heard. But how much of our life do we spend on the surface, in the middle? Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. That's why many of us come here. I love sitting up here in the front when we do come to church. I love sitting up here in the front, especially for that communion time. I love to just watch. I don't get to see what's happening, but I love to watch these moments with the pastors, these little prayer moments, these little moments of the reason I show up is to know that I'm heard and to know that I'm valued and that I'm here. What a gift you give, right? And if we could give that gift, we can give that gift at work. We can give that gift to our grandkids. We can give that gift to our spouses. But we've got to make the choice to connect. We've got to make the choice to rejoice and to weep when it's called upon. All right, so I want to share with you just, I can't be a speaker and not do a little bit of my bit, right? So when I teach social excellence, I often make it easy for people to understand. I teach these what I call the 4 pillars of social excellence. It's like a shortcut. I wake up in the morning and I challenge myself, today I'm going to be curious, generous, authentic, and vulnerable. And at the end of my day, I look back at my day and I ask myself, have I in fact been curious, generous, authentic, and vulnerable? Because if I have, I probably built real connections today. I probably got a new phone number in my phone. I probably got a friend. I've got a new name that I've got to remember now. I've got a real connection, a story to tell at dinner time tonight about somebody I encountered today. I want you to think about these. I'll give you some quick tips. Curiosity is the first one, right? The first pathway to that divine connection is curiosity. Now, I don't need to tell you to ask questions. That's not news to anybody. I just need to tell you to ask better questions. Because so often we ask boring questions, and guess what we get? Boring conversation. So from now on, if you ever find yourself in a boring conversation, guess what? It's your fault, because I told you this. But the good news is I'm going to tell you how to get out of that boring conversation. Not leave the conversation, but make the conversation better. Just simple tip. This is like tasky stuff. This is not, I don't think I'm speaking God's word right now. I'm just going to tell you some simple tips. 5 phrases to put at the beginning of any question to make your questions better. How, why, tell me about, explain to me, and help me understand. How, why, tell me about, explain to me, or help me understand. If you ask any of those questions, the conversation gets better. I'm Matt. You're Matt, right?
Yeah.
Matt, where are you from?
I'm from Denver.
Nobody cares, right? No, I'm sure somebody cares. You guys probably care, but what if we ask that question in a better way? Tell me about where you're from.
I'm from here.
No, you got to tell me about it, though.
No,
you don't have to do it. I won't put you on the spot, but think about it. I do care where you're from, by the way. I care about you very much. I think if we could ask better questions, we'll find ourselves in better conversations. The second little pillar is generosity, right? And often when we think about generosity, we think about putting money on the plate as it goes past us, and that's a socially excellent thing to do, if not just a generous thing to do. Or maybe when we think of generosity, we think about going to Nicaragua and digging holes for people, like changing people's life that way. That's a socially excellent thing to do. But here I'm talking about something much simpler. These little moments when we make people's day, their week, their life a little bit better because we're in it. Whose day will you make today? What smile will you give to somebody who needs it? What hug will you offer? Gosh, our world needs this stuff, doesn't it? The third pillar of social excellence is authenticity. Authenticity, I think authenticity, a lot of people talk about authenticity. Let me share with you what I think about when I think about the word authenticity. I'm reminded that everybody I encounter comes to me in that moment. Every interaction I have, that person shows up with a lifetime full of stuff, right? Baggage, maybe. We all come with a lifetime full of, you all have a lifetime full of lessons to teach me, if only I could tap into them, right? You all also show up, every person I encounter shows up with a lifetime full of moments of happiness and joy and absolute elation, right? And every person we encounter shows up to that moment with a lifetime full of moments of sorrow and joy and loss. There are people in here who are experiencing love in the most beautiful way right now, either with a partner next to them or with a child or a grandchild newly born into their life. And there are people in here who are struggling with loss and sorrow. There are people in here right now who are sick and ill and struggling and nobody knows it. And of course, all of those things are all of us all the time, aren't they? And of course, the only way we actually get to that authentic connection, the only way we show our authentic selves to others is through the fourth pillar, which is vulnerability. Vulnerability is a scary word. And we spend so much of our life building walls around ourselves. So much of our lives building walls around ourselves, and all any of us want is for somebody to build a bridge between us. It's for somebody to build a bridge between our hearts and theirs. So I'm proud of this work that I get to do. I love sharing this message, but I'm a little prouder of something else, I'll be honest with you. My little kids. Some of you have met them before. They were the stars of the Christmas play, in my opinion anyway. I don't know if that's true. Anyway, Elliot's the big one. She's 8 years old now, and Josie's 5. They're just incredible little kids. And this summer I had this opportunity to go do a talk in Memphis, Tennessee. I speak at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital every once in a while, and I got to go there, and I actually asked Elliot, the big one, to come along with me on a work trip. It was a lot of fun. But a couple months before we went, I looked at Elliot and I said, "Sweetheart, listen, I'm going to bring you up on stage. I'm going to let you wear a microphone. Let's not just go to a hotel together. Let's go. Let's put you on stage. Let's show you off." And she was like, "Yeah, that sounds great, Daddy." I said, "Okay, but if you get to stand on stage, you get to wear a microphone, you got to say something, and it can't be my stuff. You got to come up with your own stuff. Can you do that?" She said, "Yes, Daddy." I said, "Okay." So I got to say, I listed a few of my favorite talks I've ever given. This one was near the top as well. And I got to share the stage with my then 7-year-old daughter, Elliot. And she got to share with the audience that day, 600 students in a giant room with a micro. She got to wear one of the cool lapel, like the cool, what do you call these? They're like Britney Spears microphones. Anyway, she got to wear one of those. And she presented to them the book that she wrote, you all. See, that day when I asked her to come up with something on her own to share, she tapped me on the shoulder a couple hours later and she said, "Daddy, I wrote a book." And I said, "Okay, let's see what you got." Turns out it's pretty good. Can I share it with you all? It's a 10-step guide to human connection. The first step is see someone you would like. Pretty simple, right? Step one, see someone you would like. There are far too many strangers in the world. I don't need to offer much commentary to my daughter's brilliance here, to be honest with you, but let me just say that there are far too many strangers in the world. Step two of Elliot's 10-step guide is then say hello, then tell them your name, and then make them your friend. She fast-forwarded through a whole lot of the process in step two. I thought that was great. I think she's trying to remind us that it's not that hard. Think like a then 7-year-old who wrote this book. Step three, give them love and hope. Is there anything more beautiful? Like, she understands that all any of us want is to know that we're loved and to know that we matter. And she put it right there in step three. Step 3 out of 10 is give people love and hope. Step 4, include everyone. Elliot understands that as humans, one of our biggest fears is being left out of a group. Step 5, help them. Now, whether it's helping someone with a skinned knee or giving someone a gift of flowers. I thought this picture was giving someone a gift of flowers. Turns out it's helping someone with a skinned knee. But I think these little moments of humanity are needed now more than ever, aren't they? I think about the big, hairy, audacious goals that our church has. I think about last year's, ending public shootings. Human connection might be the missing link, right? We live in this disconnected world. We live in this disconnected world where people feel lost and people feel threatened and people feel scared. And my kids and most kids know what to do. They've been trained what to do if a public shooter shows up at their school. That's a reality that we live in today. Help them. I just think there's so much profoundness in this, I can't even describe it. This year's goal, understanding racism. Isn't that just about human connection? Isn't that just about the way we choose to fill this space between us and other people? Step 6. Tell them how you're feeling. Even a 7-year-old understands the power of vulnerability in our lives. How often have you not told someone how you're feeling? Who do you need to tell how you're feeling right now? Step 7. Follow the rules. I don't really know what this one was about, Elliot. This was like crazy hair day at school. Follow the rules. I mean, maybe she's talking about the rules of social interaction, right? Manners and politeness and social decorum and shaking hands and eye contact. Or maybe, again, it was just crazy hair day at school. I'm not entirely sure. Step 8, listen. Yes! Elliot understands that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Step 9, do your chores at a friend's house. Again, I have no idea what this is about, you guys. She's 7. Give her a break. No, do your chores at a friend's house. This is brilliant, right? I mean, maybe she's talking about how important it is to care for our neighbors, right? The deepest level of societal participation and contribution. Maybe that's do unto others. Maybe that's what she's talking about. Or maybe she just got back from her friend's house and she felt a little guilty about not picking up after. Anyway, do your chores at a friend's house. Just good advice, good practical advice. Step 10, make them happy. I did this in the 8 o'clock and I kind of want to do it again now if that's okay. Hey, Josie, are you over there? Could you come up here real quick? So this is my other daughter, Josie. She's 5 years old. Could everybody welcome Josie up here? So I had a whole plan for today, and Josie, at about 8 o'clock last night, came up to me and she gave me something, which kind of screwed up my plan for the day because I wanted to include this. Josie, who's 5 years old, who's a kindergartner, she wrote a book too. And she gave it to me last night. And she gave it to me because I think she wanted me to share it with you all today, so I want to. The title of this book is What You Do to Make Friends at the Zoo by Josie. It's good, right? Page 1 says, say hi. Page 2 says, look at animals together. The end. Hey, don't overthink it. There are too many people in our world who we need to say hi to, and look at animals together. I hope as we come to the end of both of these books, I hope that you're able to tap into a little of that divine potential that lives within everybody around you. I hope you choose to create some of those moments of human connection. And I hope you choose to feel God's presence in that space. Thank you, everybody.